Hello, today everyone. I have with me Laura at the Healthy Carnivore, not the Healthy, at Healthy Carnivore. Hi Laura, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Good, good, good. Well, we were just catching up and realizing that we are from some of the same places. We were born only like probably an hour and a half, 2 hours away from each other, and we grew up on the Mississippi River. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I am so excited to jump into your story personally, but then I would like to shift into your education. Just tell me how this all came about and what things were like for you before you started eating carnivore.
Yeah. As a child, I was a chunkier child. I wasn't what I would call really morbid obese, like you see a lot of children today. Grew up next door to a German grandma, which means eat everything on your plate and they make your plate. But by the time I had reached 19, I was 240 pounds,
How
which
tall?
is actually what I'm 5'5".
Okay.
Yep, yep. And I graduated high school about that weight actually. And then when I was pregnant and then had my daughter at 20, I had listened to my doctor. He was a pretty new doctor. He had only been out of medical school about 2 years when he came to our little town. And so I was doing what everybody was doing in the 90s. It was chicken breast, no fat. It was the low fat salad dressings that were all seed oil and sugar. It was, you know, the fake butter. So he loved country crock. He just harped on that. And I did that for almost a year. And then in 91, I had my lab work done early in the year, and I noticed fat in my blood. So, like when she turned the tube on the side to have me read my name and date of birth, it looked like pieces of Crisco in there, which I didn't know what that I was. I go, what is that? And she goes, oh, it's fat. And I'm thinking, I'm not even eating any fat. How is there fat in my blood? But I was like, okay, he'll get to the bottom of it because that was I was in that belief system of they can fix it, they know what how to help you. And so I went to see him about a week later, and of course my triglycerides were over 1,000, and they don't know how high because that's as far as their meter went, but it went there very, very quickly, like instantaneously. It was like nothing to 1,000. And so who knows exactly where they started out at, but that's telling you diabetes is coming. That's knocking on the door. I don't remember him really harping on the other cholesterol numbers. They didn't have hemoglobin A1C. That really wasn't a thing that they did back then. So none of that was done. But I do remember him talking about me having to poke myself with needles. I despise needles. Like I love to poke other people, but I do not poke myself well. And I'm a good poker. So like most of the people are like, I didn't even know you drew my blood, or I didn't know you started my IV. So I do pride myself in not hurting people, but I'm not even going to attempt to do it to myself. So
I call those
I
whenever that happens, I call those needle ninja.
yes,
You don't even
yes,
know they're there.
that's the way you want it too. And I've had some that do that and they're very good. But I am just not somebody that was okay with continuing to eat the bad food, just so that I could eat the bad food to get up every day and check my blood sugar and to do it 4 times a day. And I had that discussion with my doctor. He handed me a paper script. This was still back in the day before the computers, and it was for Lipitor. And I was young, I was 20, and I said, well, how long do I take this? I'm thinking it's like an antibiotic. And he said, forever. And I was like, I said, I am 20. I don't want to live out of a bottle. I'm not going to live out of a bottle. And that really was the end of his conversation. It was like, pat you on the head and send you out the door. And we have a great big old library in the town I grew up in. It looks like a castle. It's really cool. And so I went there, and every day after work, I just spent hours upon hours. I mean, several weeks of going through all the old medical journals, medical books, a couple of veterinarian books, which was kind of interesting. Um, which is probably why veterinarians, they spend so much more for schools because they have to learn all the different body systems of all the different, mammals that they take care of. Um, so I did that, and I went home and I literally walked into my house, and it was like an epiphany. I opened up my cupboards, I opened up my pantry, and I just took everything out.
How old were you?
Anything. I was 20. I
Wow.
was 20. Yes, I'm very lucky. People, when they heard my story, yes, I was with Dr. Baker. He interviewed me in February, and everybody's like, "Aren't you mad?" And he even asked me, "Aren't you mad?" after we got off the thing. And I said, actually, I was at the time, but I'm so glad he did that to me back then versus me being 50, 60, 70 before I finally, yeah, realized it. So I feel bad. I did take all this food to the food pantry. I would never do that today. I would just, it'd be trash because that's what it is. But I just really started what they call keto. I did high fat, high protein, and some minimal vegetables. So, like broccoli, some cauliflower, asparagus, things that we grew. We do a garden, and I've always done that. But and that worked fairly well for me. Within 9 months, I lost 153 pounds. I went back, yes, to have my blood work. There was no exercise other than my job, which I just worked at a factory at the time, and walking to and from the mailbox. That was it. I didn't start exercising till I was actually 39. And but I went back. They drew my blood, no Crisco pieces in it. So I was like, okay, I think I've done something here. And I got my results, and then I went to see him a week later. My triglycerides were 33. Yeah, and so now they run anywhere between 33 to 68 when I have them tested, depending on how much fasting, if I sprinted, if I did any heavy, anything that pulls and makes you use more cholesterol, as its carrier that it is, then I can have that go up a little bit, but it always stays very, very well within range. So of course he's like patting himself on the back of how great this Lipitor had worked for me. Now, mind you, Lipitor came out in '87, the same year that Congress took the ban off of medical commercials in the United States. I'm sure that was accidental. But anyway, so by 91, it was still pretty much a baby drug. But he, was talking about it. And I said, "Oh, I did not fill your prescription." And I handed it back to him. And he looked at me like I had three heads. And he says, "Well, you're just going to die a fat ass."
You lost that much weight and he said that to you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And of course, I was 20, so I still had somewhat of a filter back then, and I was younger and naive, And I just said, "Well, I'm going to lose a lot more weight than that because you're fired." And that was the end of me having a doctor for a couple years. And I just stayed eating that way. I made all of my own foods. I deer hunt, I bow hunt, shotgun, muzzle loader, fish. I don't do any trapping. I have with my grandmother years ago, but I don't really do that anymore. I'm always afraid something cute's going to get in there, and I don't want something like that to happen. So I don't do any of that. But I do all the other ways of hunting. So I just did that, and it worked very well. I mean, it worked well. I had my second child in '96, so he was a keto baby. Um, I gained 7 pounds with my pregnancy. I mean, yeah, 68 with the first one, and 7 with the second one, and he was 7 pounds 6 ounces. So, you know, yeah, yeah. And so I stayed that way for 26 years, just doing the keto, doing the clean keto out of my garden, single ingredient foods. And then, of course, the marketers started Quest bars and all these keto treats. And you can make your cheesecake and it looks and tastes just like the old cheesecake, which I got really, really good at. I could make stuff that people had no clue. But then I started noticing I developed really bad cystic acne, which I had never had. My joints, when I would wake up, they would just be so stiff, mostly my hand joints, but I noticed it in an old injury I have in my back from when I was 28. And I would be like, I couldn't even do this to the side without it really aching. My brain fog was horrific. That I knew without my husband telling me. I'd be in a sentence and then I'd be like, and not even like trying to search for the words, like trying to speak, just literally was like froze up, like, okay, yeah. I had depression and anxiety. I've always had OCD. I still have OCD, but it is a healthier version of it. I think part of my personality is always going to be that way, no matter what. I think I was that way as a child. I think self preservation was a big thing for me as a child. And always knowing my thought was the best person to trust is yourself. And just you have to be self reliant and you have to be able to do the things you need to do. So I've always been systematic the way I do things. That way I can go back the next day and I'm like, there they are. Everything's exactly where it's supposed to be. So I still have that, which works really well in my field of working to be that way. But after doing the what I call dirty keto for 2 years, I was sitting on the couch. I was miserable. I always had horrible constipation, eating vegetables. I can remember even as a kid, never did I not have constipation. And I was watching Joe Rogan. I just happened to slide through Facebook and Joe Rogan was on, and it was Dr. Baker. And he started, talking about it. And I thought, well, this makes sense because my father is 3/4 Cherokee Indian. And I thought, yeah, I'll bet you, they came from upper Illinois, his family, the Cherokee tribe he was in. And I thought, you know, they weren't chasing broccoli. They weren't nomadic chasing around fields, it was after the animals and they would eat the occasional berries, of course, and different things that they did. And I thought, well, I'm going to try that. I mean, when you go from keto to carnivore, it's not that difficult. It was like I gave up 3 types of vegetables. Okay. So
And
that's
all
what I
those
did.
Quest bars.
Oh, yeah. The Quest bars I had already, the last couple of weeks, I was like, because once a sugar addict, it's just like alcohol and everything else. You are an addict. Yes. So that first bite of that Quest bar, I remember it was the Oreo flavored one. It was like the Oreo. And the first bite, and I mean, it had been 26 years since I had put any kind of sugar in my mouth. And instantly it was like, I need another one of those. So, I mean, there was days where I'd eat 2 or 3 of those bars. It was like zero control, right? All over again. So I had already kind of cut those out. Plus, I was always so good at looking at packages, looking at the nutrients and the ingredients. And I had not done that with those keto things. And I don't know why. I do it on everything. It drives my husband insane. And I turned it over, and maltodextrin was the first or second ingredient. And I thought, I know all the names of sugar. I prided myself on putting that information out for people on my keto pages and stuff. Was here's these 72 names. Now it's over 100 names of sugar. And I had never taken the time just to turn that over to look at it. I just was like, it's keto. Um, so really quickly after doing switching to carnivore, and it wasn't really the high fat. I do an extremely high fat carnivore now, but it was carnivore. It was all the different meats, and of course none of the vegetables, butter, some tallow, salt, and water is basically what I did. And I was doing some eggs at the time. My daughter raises chickens and stuff, and geese, and all kinds of different feathered animals for their egg purposes. And so I had that, did fairly well. The brain fog was almost instant. It was crazy. I was drinking 1 or 2 cups of coffee a week, and I would do like MCT or ghee because I can do ghee. something like that in there and was doing like a bulletproof coffee. And boy, you could really tell because, it crosses the blood brain barrier so easily. It doesn't need any assistance. So that lifted the anxiety, depression. That was gone. So this was in 2019. Um, and really, the last thing to go for me was actually the joint pain and the swelling. That took the longest amount of time to get rid of. And I actually, which this scares a lot of people, I gained 10 pounds when I started keto or carnivore from where I had been. And I don't own a scale. I had just been to the doctor, so I knew I was 10 pounds. I do have a scale now, but I didn't at the time. So I knew I'm up 10 pounds. And, that back in the day, all the commercials and all the magazines, you're like, oh my God, I can't gain 10 pounds. That scale number that represents who I am as a person, which is not true. And so I started to freak out. And then I was like, all right, calm down. Your body's trying to heal. You know this. You've read the old, medical books. It talks about things that happen and why you would retain fluid or why you would gain some fat to help healing. I mean, it's all in these old books. That's what it's so maddening. It was there previous to the medical system of way of doing things now. Um, and so I just kept doing that. And over time, it just got better and better. I did. I have asthma. I was born with asthma. I had all three types of asthma. So now the only one that I have is allergens. I don't have exercise induced. I don't have anxiety induced, which I don't have anxiety. So maybe if I had it, I don't know, but I just don't have those anymore. I don't have any asthma symptoms other than allergies. I don't have shortness of breath. I don't use any of my rescue inhalers, the albuterol. I haven't used any of that in well over a decade, maybe closer to two. So all of that improved, which led me to being able to exercise a lot better and do a lot more exercising, which is what I did. And then I actually in early 20, I had a 7.5 hour surgery. And I had listened to a lot of Dr. Jason Fung. I had his book on fasting. And so I had been doing like 3-day fast, 124, just kind of changing it up, not keeping it the same every day, because I think we got to keep our bodies guessing to get a really good outcome. And did a 7-day fast with just salt and water. And I do like Redmond's or Baja Gold are the twos that I've had. Salt, I make Soleil water. And my blood sugar runs around 55, maybe 60, which is normal for me. So the day I went up for surgery, I was doing long distance running and I had ran 15 miles, took a shower, and we went up. And when they went to check me in, the anesthesiologist was freaked out because my blood sugar was 54. And I said, yes, it was 55 before I ran 15 miles. So I only dropped 1 point. And of course, she wanted to hang a bag of lactated ringers, which is just sugar water. And I said, I refuse. You're not going to hang that. And she goes, I have to. And I said, you don't understand. I said, you need to go back and look at the medical books back before we had sugar and everything. And you would find that that was the normal range for people's blood sugars. I said, just because you guys all eat this, and so you've bumped the numbers up, doesn't mean it's normal. It's what you see. And I said, I'm not going to do that. Well, she was going to cancel. And so my surgeon came in, I talked to her, and she said, if you sign a waiver, maybe I can get her. And I said, that's fine. And so I signed a waiver that I was going to have normal saline, just the salt water. And during surgery, unless I went below 50, then she could do lactated ringers. I knew I wasn't going to go below 50. So at 7.5 hours, went to post-op, posted about 45 minutes. And when I really come to, I looked up at the pole and it was normal saline hanging. And then I said, because I'm a nurse, I knew that in surgery, they don't do computer charting. They write it out and then somebody else puts it into a computer later. So I said, I want to see my surgical report. And so they brought it to me and I read it and it was normal saline the whole time. Plus I would have known how I felt because I would have felt dead. I mean, I can't even imagine because I am one of those all or none personalities. So I've never been somebody that was like, oh, I can have a bite of an apple, or I can have, a piece of birthday cake at one of my grandchildren's birthday party. I just don't do it because I know what it's going to lead to. It's like telling a drug addict, here's an oxycodone. It won't be that bad. Or, taking an alcoholic to a bar and offering him just one shot. I mean, you would never do that to somebody. So that is basically how I got into carnivore. And so it's been over 5 years of carnivore and 2 years of lion. So I just eat ruminant meats and egg yolks once in a while, and then salt and water. And I do that because of the histamines. I do have histamine issues when I do egg whites, chicken, pork, especially pork. If I do one little piece of bacon, like around a filet mignon, I can do that. If I eat a second piece of bacon the next day, cannot open my hands, can't close my hands. They are just miserable. So that is basically, that's where I stay. And I eat half a pound of crispy ribeye fat every day as a side to whatever meat, if I'm doing a burger or a steak. So that's what I do every day.
Absolutely awesome. I love it. I resonated so much with your story. And I love just the grit that you had at such a young age to go dig for that information,
Yeah.
from a library, and those old, medical books. And
Yeah.
I think there is so much truth there. But we have been deceived, and I don't want to get too much into conspiracy theory, but people talk about psychological warfare. I think we're in dietary warfare.
I
I think
absolutely
there has been a
agree.
concerted agenda and an effort to put us into dietary warfare, and to, slap a label on it and a picture and make it look like food, but it is deception. It is absolute deception. It is not food. Like so much of what you're saying has totally resonated with me, and I'm the same way with the high fat, and lion diet.
Yeah.
It's just it's where I feel best, and I'm just addicted to feeling good.
Yes, me too.
I just recently went through kind of a physical thing. I had a kidney infection, and I
Mhm.
had pain, and I was talking to my dad, and I was like, I forgot how much pain sucks. Like,
Yes.
I just don't experience it. I don't experience in my
No.
joints. Like, I don't experience pain. And I used to be like popping like 800 milligrams of ibuprofen every day just because of the joint
Yep.
pain. Um,
Hmm.
and so it's really interesting that some of us are so sensitive that we even react to chicken and egg whites and pork.
Yep.
And so I'm so grateful to have this conversation, to let people know, because people will go, I did carnivore and I still don't feel good. Well,
Hmm.
there's more. There's more of
Yeah.
a refining of your experiment that you can do. Um,
Yes.
so tell us a little bit about your education, professionally,
Mhm.
because I think that is really interesting that you were kind of in the lion's den. Like you were really
Yeah.
in a position where you could have been susceptible to some of this deception.
Yes. So being raised, I was raised by a single mom next to my German grandmother who came through Auschwitz. So at a very young age, probably before even going to school, she actually told me, and I heard her say this so many times growing up, that she was probably the original conspiracy theorist, but she could be because she lived through it. So she would make these statements like, it's not the government's job to take care of all of your needs. And any government that wants to take care of all of your needs has an ulterior motive. And I mean, she said it, and it was like, boom, it was in there. So I have always been one of those. I don't blindly give trust. I don't blindly, just because you have numbers, letters behind you. That doesn't make act, I'm not going to be like, yes, yes. There's only one person I do that for, and I just have always grown up that way. So when he did that to me, when the doctor did that, he lit a fire and there was no going back. There was no going back, no matter what it took. I even remember being laid off from the factory I was at and thinking money wise, like, well, I can babysit. And in Iowa, you can pick up cans because they're 5 cents a piece. And I was like, I'll do whatever it takes to have the financial ability to make sure that I can eat this versus the cheap junk food that they offer you, if you end up on welfare, which I did not at that time. Um, and then in 2001, I went to nursing school, and of course, nutrition was one of the prerequisites, that we have to take, that the doctors don't have to, and even that, even if they had to take it, it's junk science. It's just a joke. And even in that class, I can remember, and I did really like the instructor. I think she means well, but she was talking about these K cows and this much. And I said, we have to get the Bunsen burner this hot to get the thermal effect that we need to break that down. And I said, I'm just a common sense person. There is nothing inside me that gets hot enough to do that. So how does that even make any difference what the calorie is, the amount? And she says, it's just the way they do it. It's just a calculation. You just need to understand how to do it. Okay. So what I did is I compartmentalized what I learned into an area, same as when I went into nursing school. A lot of the nursing school information is correct. It's just that the further you go on, like get your registered nurse, if you get your bachelor's, your master's, they really deviate away from nursing. It's more of propaganda, it's more of medical, it's more about medicine, medicine, medicine. And I've always believed that you can do so much more. I'm not saying there isn't a time and place for medications. There's absolutely a time for emergency medicine. I just don't think that there is a need for you to go to the doctor for your daily health. I feel like that's your job to do. Um, and so going through nursing school, I did my LPN and then I worked for 5 years and went back and did my RN. And so doing that, um, that one again, I'd be like, that doesn't make sense. That does not, I've seen this. Of course, I was older when I went to nursing school. It wasn't right out of high school. So I was 30. And so I just told myself again, like, just answer the questions on the test. You know what they want. And I'm very good at like, if I read something, I don't necessarily remember it, but if I draw it or if I hear it or if I write it out, I've got it. And so I knew the type of studying I needed to do. So I did that. So I'm grateful for the education I got because the anatomy and physiology and the chemistry part, absolutely. I still use it every day. Now, as for some of the other classes that they have, you're not going to use it. It's the same with the MDs and DOs. There's so much stuff that they take has nothing to do with it. And I remind the doctors that I work with, I've reminded my own doctor that I see, go back and remember your prereqs, your pre-med. Go back to physiology. What does cholesterol do? What does this do? Why do I have cholesterol in my body? Why did God put a liver in my body that creates this much cholesterol? If it is on mistake, if it's an accident, if it's causing me harm. And I'm like, before you went to the next 6 years of your schooling, which was all pharmaceutical pushed, and it's no longer any kind of, we want to cure your disease. It's all disease management. We'll just manage you with your disease your whole life, which is another thing for me because I don't trust governments either. So I'm always like, they're not going to tell me, like, I'm not going to be buying their medicine that they approved and did it because to me, I might as well be in their lap. And if I don't trust them for anything else, why would I trust them that they're going to have these lettered agencies that are out there? I always use the Food and Drug Administration and I did a video of this. I'm like, the Food and Drug Administration is together. So the food part of the FDA approves foods that are for human consumption. They set up the pyramids along with some families of like Kellogg's and things like that. Um, so they approve those. So then you get to eat them if you are somebody that is on welfare and you get food stamps. If you're in a hospital, if you're in a prison, if you're in a school, those foods will be determined by that part of the Food and Drug Administration and the USDA. So I always tell people, I'm like, so the foods that were approved, you ate them, then you got sick. And then the diseases you got from the approved food, now the Drug Administration of the FDA comes in and goes, aha, we have we have something that can manage the disease that you got from eating the approved food that we did. And people are like, FDA? And I was like, should not be anywhere together. They should not be in the same office at all. Um, and so it's been very, there have been times in my nursing career, I'm not shy. If I think something's not right, I'm a patient advocate first before I'm anything else. And I will lose a job over a patient. I will lose a job over making a decision for my body. I've done it. Um, and because I think that you have to do the right thing. You have to treat patients as though, like I was trained, you treat your patients as though they were your family member, because then you'll think of it that way. You won't do something that maybe is haphazard. You'll just be mindful of that. And so that's how I've always done it. And sometimes big hospital entities, they don't really want you to have a voice. They don't want you to stand up for the patients. They just want you to nod your head, give whatever the doctor ordered, and go on your merry day. But the problem with that is, for one, is they took an oath to do no harm. We did not as nurses, but I see that that's who's usually the ones fighting,
Ah,
is the ones that, yeah, we didn't take that oath, but yet we do tend to be the ones to do it. And part of that's advocacy, which the last 3, 4, 5 years, the advocacy in the healthcare field is pretty well, you got to be your own advocate. Um, so it's caused me a little bit of heartache, but it was worth it every single time, and I will continue to do it. The job that I do now for my nursing career is home health nursing. So I go into the patient's homes and then work with the doctor, basically phone wise and faxing and stuff like that. So you have some autonomy. And so I work with patients, and it's the minute I walk in the door, my eyeballs are scanning foods, drinks, lifestyle, and not in a judgy way, because I've been there, but just to be like, okay, as I look at their medications, as I look at what they're, needing help in the home for and things like that, all of that is computing in the background. And then when I make my care plan for the way I'm going to work with them, I integrate that in there. And the nice thing about a nursing license and a scope of practice is it just says, when it comes to nutrition, it just says implement and teach nutrition. It doesn't say I have to follow NIH, WHO, CD, nothing. It says nutrition. And so that's what I do with my patients. And I've had patients as old as 98 that have converted to ketogenic lifestyle. And the youngest I had was 34 when it came to patients, but I've had that whole spectrum of age. And so Dr. Berry always says, if you can fog a mirror, it's never too late. And so I always tell patients, if they're 90 and they're like, well, I'm on 28 medications. And I'm like, okay, but do we have to be? Like, let's look at these. And I always ask the doctors when I go in the home, I'll send them a list of the medication, and I just put on there, look at all of these medications that have major interactions. What do you want to do about it? Because when you do that, they're like, crap, I got to do something about it. and not all the time, but I do see a majority of the time they were the ones that prescribed all of them. Now sometimes you have different doctors even in the same office, and I'm like, your computers aren't connected, like, but many of my patients, their doctors will start weaning them down. Most of my patients do not take statin. They get all the studies. I'm like, here's the Juniper study. Here's these studies. I think I have about 64 studies. I did a live with Carnivore Brothers, and we really dug into the cholesterol myth, that I call it, and had all the studies to back it up. So that's what I give like the doctors, because that's how they learn. They should be learning from their patients, but they really do better if you hand them these studies to look at. And so that's what I've done with them. And most of them in my area, and I have one nurse practitioner that she actually will send her patients to me, even if it's not home health. She'll say, "Can I give out your email?" And I will work with people like that. Or on my website, I will work with people as well. So that is kind of what I've done with the carnivore. And then I make all of my own products, which I have done for so long, because I think once you start getting clear in your mind and you get clear about what you're putting in your body, I think it's a natural progression to go, well, what am I putting on my body? So I started making lotions, shampoo, body soap, deodorant, tooth powder decades ago, and just continue to do that. I had so much jarred tallow because I also can. And so I will render down tallow and just put it in quart jars and seal it. And I had over 100 of those. And so when a friend was like, well, you make it for you and your family and you give it away to some of these patients and stuff, why don't you just get a website? And I was like, I am not smart enough to do a website. Like, I am not, I was born in 71. We didn't have computers like right here. And I said, and she said, I'll help you build it. It'll be a free website. It won't cost anything. We'll do it. And just see if there's interest out there for these natural holistic products. And I also do believe that plants should be used as medicine. So I do like dandelion tinctures and elderberry tinctures, oregano oils, and things like that as well. And so we did that, and it was supposed to be just a side, like little bit of something. But my boss, every day, she's like, she'll hear my phone going off, and she knows what sound it is for the site that I use. And she's like, "Is that an order?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "You're not quitting, are you?" As a nurse. And I'm like, "No, I'm not quitting. This is just on the side." But I could easily, if for some reason, if we get another crazy 2020 issue happen again, I'm done. I'm done. I fought the first one. Not that I won't fight the second one, because I will, but I'm just not going to be trying to work every day and have those pressures on me while I'm trying to take care of human beings. So I just won't do that again. And so then I will just do that full time. Plus I do consulting and work with people on my website. So I would just do that. And I really can live very minimal. The size of my house is under 930 square feet, and it's not a tiny home, it's just an old home. But I don't have to have any of that stuff. I don't have to have a TV in each room. We have one TV. So I'm kind of a minimalist, but I'm also a prepper. So what I do have prepped, I don't have tons of it, but I have exactly what I know I would need if anything would ever happen. And of course, the medical stuff I have as well, just in case.
I love that. I love that. Man, what an incredible journey. And it's so fun to look back and to go, oh, that's why I was drawn to
Mhm.
that, because that was preparing me for this phase, and this phase was preparing me for the next phase.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful. So I really, I know we could probably talk so much longer. But I know that you also do some kind of roundtable, like you were saying, the Carnivore Brothers, but you do a group with the Monday Night Women.
Yeah, it's Meaty Mondays with the Fierce Felines. And
Yes.
I think we're on week 46. This next Monday will be week 46. We actually started on Halloween or trick or treat night, actually. So it was a day before Halloween. But we have done one every single week so far, and we're going to continue.
I love it. I have
Yeah.
talked to Robin. I really like her. And then of
Oh,
course,
yes.
um, the Ruiz family, uh,
Oh, Rebecca.
amazing, amazing people.
Yes.
So
Oh,
they asked me to
tough.
be on, so I'm gonna try and get that scheduled. I
Yeah.
would love to sit and talk with those ladies.
She's
But
so smart. Rebecca is extremely, extremely smart. And you want to talk about tough as nails and tenacity. How anybody could have that many children, a very sick husband, and still had the wherewithal to be like, I need to do this for myself and my family and my husband. And even though, and I'm not sure how their house structure is, like if he's head of household, some people are very much one's, the head of the household. But no matter what, you had to have that strong mother in there who was willing to be like, we're doing this and I'll do whatever it takes to do it. So yeah, she's very tough. I think she's got less than 3 weeks for baby number 9
yeah,
is on the way.
yes,
Yes.
yes, yes. She sent me a
Yeah.
text. She was like, I haven't told anybody yet, but I'm pregnant. And I was like, yay.
Oh yeah. 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 Very exciting. A carnivore baby.
I know. I love it.
Yes.
And then your YouTube channel is a wealth of knowledge all in itself. So what is, and I'll put this all in the show notes, but what is your YouTube channel and what is your website?
Yeah. So my YouTube channel is at Healthy Carnivore. And then my website, the easiest way to get into it is just to type in my last name, Russell, which is Russell. And then it's all one word, and then BRANDZ. So like Russell Brand, but instead with the Z, .com. And that
Awesome.
takes you to my website of my products and then my coaching and stuff like that. So yeah.
That's
And
incredible.
I crochet when I have like 10 minutes to sit down. I make blankets for my patients. So they all get a lap afghan before I get them discharged.
That's incredible. That's incredible. I
Yeah.
love that. And
Yeah.
and really a very therapeutic exercise
Yes.
because
Yes.
you are it's kind of like a mindless I mean you
Hmm.
do have to think about what you're doing but
Right.
a
Relaxing.
yes.
So
And so you're
relaxing.
able to kind of like go into that zen mode, and that
Yes.
really kind of like mimics meditation to
Yes.
really go into that. So that's a really good
Yeah.
side side
Yeah.
experience.
Yep. I like to stay very busy.
I love it. I love it. Well, we're definitely gonna have to meet up sometime and go share a steak together.
Yeah.
Well, probably not share a steak, but we'll share a steak dinner because we
Yeah.
can both
I was
eat
like,
our
I'm
own.
eating a whole steak.
Yeah.
Are you gonna be at Keto Palooza?
No, no,
Oh,
Where's
yeah.
that at?
I'm gonna That's in Louisville, Kentucky, October, the middle of October. So that'll be the first ketogenic type thing that I've been to. So I am gonna be at that this year.
My first live event was meat stock. Um,
Oh,
oh my goodness, it was incredible. I got to meet
yeah.
Sean Baker for the first time,
Yeah.
Kelly Hogan, Dr.
Yes.
Kiltz, Sally K. Norton.
Wow.
It was just incredible. And we literally stayed in a cabin for like 7 days together in Tennessee. And then we had guests that came. And it was just phenomenal. I didn't know what to expect, but
Mhm.
having everybody in one place and you're literally like eating all of your meals, you're like going on hikes together, you're waking up, you're going to bed, you're talking
Right.
everything. The whole 7 days, there was so much carnivore zen. Like
Yeah.
everybody was just calm. Like nobody was like irritable or like high
No.
maintenance. Like everybody was just like, okay,
Chill.
whatever
Yep.
happens, like because we're not like all jocked up on sugar and processed foods, and
Yeah.
we're just all at peace. So
Yes.
I would definitely like to try out that keto event. That sounds cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited. So I think there'll be I haven't looked to see which doctors. I do know that they have doctors and some speakers and things like that that are going to be there. So yeah, I look forward to that. I like getting around people. The little county I live in, I only know of two other people in the county that are actually doing carnivore, um, which has worked out to my advantage in a way because one of them was selling a KitchenAid mixer, and that's how I found them. And when we got there, he goes, I think I had one of my carnivore shirts on, and he said, "Well, what do you need a mixer for if you don't? I've never made a cake or any of it. I already have one of those mixers, but I wanted it for the whisking, and my old one was getting old, so that I could make my lotions, and then I also grind my own deer and stuff like that." And he goes, "I'm a carnivore," and my husband was like, "Great, we're going to be here an hour and a half." But it was kind of cool, and I only stayed 10 minutes.
That's great. That's great. Well, I
Yeah.
got to interview a local guy who was an EMS. I think is
Mhm.
that or EMT?
EMT.
EMT.
EMT. Yeah.
And he lost oh gosh, I forgot. It was a lot of weight in one
Mhm.
year.
Yeah.
And he shares his story. And so
Nice.
it's so cool to like because I'm on this platform, like I'm getting some other people that will reach out to me and they've gone keto or they've gone carnivore, and
Right.
they're able to share with me, like their story and stuff. So
Right. Right. Yep. Yeah. It's wonderful. I'm glad we have this kind of abilities to do these types of interviews and things out on the internet for people to see.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, I'm going to put everything in the show notes for people to get a hold of you. I cannot thank you enough for you affording me this privilege to just have this conversation, because I think that's how we're going to shift the needle. That's how we're going to educate people, not only with our stories, but with our education. Like,
Yeah.
we're brilliant women, and we've really been in the trenches and we've done the work, to literally deliver this information to people, and kind of sort through all of the piles of information just to go, here's the nuggets.
Yeah.
Here's what you got. So thank you for all you're doing for our community.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, talk to you later.
See ya.